The sky over the planet Tyrannus burned red. People ran through the streets as fire fell from the sky. Buildings collapsed. Children cried. The peaceful world had never known war before, but now everything was falling apart. The attackers came fast, huge ships from another star. No one knew who they were or why they attacked. All the defenses of Tyrannus failed. Their strongest weapons were useless. Their leaders were afraid. Their people were dying. In the royal tower, President Alari stood in front of a large screen. Behind her, generals shouted into radios, trying to organize what was left of their army. But nothing was working. "We're losing every city," General Kiran said. "We need help. Now." Alari's hands were shaking. She had never felt this helpless. "Send a signal," she said, "to everyone, every planet, every system." "But President," one of the commanders began. "I said everyone," she shouted. Even them." The room fell silent. They all knew what she meant. There was one planet that no one ever contacted. A planet full of war, fire, and destruction. A place where even the strongest soldiers refused to go. Its name was spoken only in whispers. Xeric 9. It was the worst planet in the galaxy. Ruled by warlords, filled with violent creatures, and home to a history of betrayal and death. Once, long ago, they had been powerful allies, but something happened. No one remembered what. Since then, Xeric 9 became a shadow, a ghost planet. Feared, hated, forgotten. "We can't ask them," General Kiran said softly. "They don't help. They destroy." Alari closed her eyes. "They are our last chance." She pressed a button on the control panel. A blue light blinked. The signal was sent. 2 hours passed. Then 5. Then 10. Nothing. People began to whisper. They didn't answer. Maybe they're gone. But then, just before midnight, the screen lit up. A face appeared. A strange one. Cold eyes. Metal across one side of the jaw. Scars. A voice like thunder. "I am Commander Vork of Xeric 9, he said. "We received your call." Everyone stared in silence. President Alari stepped forward. "Our world is under attack. Our people are dying. Please, we need help." Vork did not blink. "You ask help from the planet you fear." "We have no choice," she said quietly. He looked at her for a long time. Then he nodded. "3 of our best will arrive in 24 hours, Vork said. "You must agree to one condition." "What is it?" "You will owe us, and when the time comes, we will collect." Alari hesitated, but she nodded. "Agreed." The screen went dark. The next day, 3 ships landed on Tyrannus. They were black, shaped like claws. People gathered but kept their distance. No one clapped. No one cheered. From the ships came 3 warriors, tall, armored, and terrifying. Their faces were hidden behind masks. Each carried a strange weapon. Their leader was a woman called Rhea, known across the stars as the Blade of Xerac. She looked around at the people of Tyrannus. "So soft," she said. President Alari greeted them. "Welcome. We are grateful." "We are not here for thanks," Rhea said. "We are here to fight." That night, Tyrannus watched as the Xeric warriors went into battle. And for the first time, the enemy ships fell. People cheered. Fires were put out. Families came out of hiding. There was hope. But far away, in the shadow of the mountains, Rhea stood alone, talking into a small device. "Phase 1 complete," she whispered. "Let them think we came to save them." She turned off the device and looked up at the stars. A small smile crossed her face. The next morning, the planet Tyrannus felt different. The air was still full of smoke, but there was something else now. Hope. People whispered stories. They said the Xeric warriors had destroyed 5 enemy ships in one night, that they moved like shadows, that they did not speak, only fought. Children called them heroes, but others stayed silent. They had heard the name Xerec-9 before, and they knew the stories never ended well. President Alari called a meeting in the central hall. The 3 warriors from Xerec-9 stood at the front. The people of Tyrannus gathered, staring at them with a mix of fear and wonder. Rhea, the leader, stood still like a statue. Her armor was black and silver, her eyes cold and sharp. Beside her stood Drax, a giant with arms like machines and skin that looked burned by acid. And the third was Nilo, silent, wearing a mask that covered his whole face. No one had ever heard his voice. "These are the ones who saved us," Alari said to the crowd. "They came when no one else would." Some people clapped, but others just watched, uneasy. Rhea stepped forward. "You asked for help," she said. "We have come to give it." "But," she added, her voice strong and cold, "we do not fight for free." The room went quiet. "What do you want?" asked General Kiran. Rhea's eyes scanned the room. "We want a place here. Land, supplies, and, when the war is over, something more." "What more?" Alari asked. "We will tell you when the time comes." In the days that followed, the warriors led more attacks against the enemy. Wherever they went, they won. People began to cheer when they saw them. Rhea, Drax, Nilo, the monsters from the worst planet, now their protectors. But slowly, things began to change. One morning, a farmer named Biro refused to give the warriors his food. "This is all I have," he said. That night, his house burned down. He and his family disappeared. No one asked questions. Another day, a small group of soldiers questioned Rhea's orders. The next day, they were removed from their positions. No one saw them again. When Alari asked about it, Rhea replied calmly, "They were a threat to your safety. We removed the threat." General Kiran was worried. "They're not acting like allies," he told the president. "They're taking control, quietly." But Alari shook her head. "We're alive because of them. The people trust them now." "But should they?" Kiran asked. No one had an answer. In a small village near the mountains, a young girl named Mira watched as Drax marched soldiers into the town square. He pointed to the school. "This building now belongs to Xerec-9, he said. "It will be used as a command center." "But that's our school," Mira said. Drax looked down at her. He said nothing. But the next morning, the school was gone, turned into a base with high walls and guards. Mira's parents told her not to speak again. "Xerec warriors hear everything," they whispered, "and they never forget." Meanwhile, in the old royal archives, an old historian named Laren read an ancient scroll. He had studied the galaxy for 50 years. He remembered Xerec-9. They were once protectors, he said to himself, but something changed them. He found a line in the scroll, written in fading ink. "Never accept help from a planet that enjoys war." Laren closed the scroll slowly. "We invited the wrong saviors," he whispered. One night, President Alari found a message under her door. It was written in red ink. "You are not leading anymore. We are." She rushed to the control room, but Rhea was already there, giving orders. Alari stared at her. "What are you doing?" "Keeping your planet alive," Rhea replied calmly. "You called us. Now you live under our protection. And our rule." Alari's voice trembled. "That was not the deal." Rhea smiled. "It is now." Outside, the people of Tyrannus watched as new walls were built, as patrols marched through their towns, as more of their world changed under the hand of their so-called protectors. Some still believed the warriors came to save them. Others began to feel the truth. The monsters had not come to help. They had come to stay. The sky over Tyrannus was quiet now. No more enemy ships. No more attacks. But something still didn't feel right. The streets were filled with strange soldiers, not from Tyrannus, but from Xerec-9. Their black armor shone under the suns. Their boots shook the ground as they marched. They said they were there to protect the people. But the people weren't sure anymore. President Alari stood at her office window. She watched a group of Xeric patrols outside. They were searching houses. Again, General Kirin entered the room. "They've taken control of 3 more cities," he said, without asking. Alari turned around slowly. Her eyes looked tired. "This was not the plan." "No," Kirin said. "It wasn't." He held up a datapad. "There's more." The warriors set up a Xeric law office in the southern region. They're punishing citizens, beatings, arrests. No trials. Alari sat down. "We needed help. We were dying." Kirin nodded. "Now we're alive, but not free." In the capital, the people whispered in fear. Xeric patrols searched homes for weapons or dangerous ideas. They questioned teachers, closed schools, burned old books. At first, the people tried to stay calm. "They're only being careful," some said. "They saved us." But slowly, that belief began to crack. When a local doctor refused to treat a Xeric soldier without payment, he disappeared. When a small boy spoke against Rhea in the market, his parents were taken the next day. A woman shouted, "This is not safety. This is control." She was arrested before sunset. In the underground tunnels of Tyrannus, 5 citizens met in secret. They called themselves the Flame. Among them was Laren, the old historian. He had lived long enough to remember when Tyrannus was truly free. "Xeric didn't save us," he said. "They invaded us quietly." Another member, Mira, the brave girl from the mountains, clenched her fists. "They act like they own us now." "They do," whispered Dano, a young pilot. "Our leaders gave them permission." Laren shook his head. "We must take that power back." "But how?" Mira asked. Laren looked toward the roof of the tunnel. "By finding the truth." Meanwhile, in a secret Xeric command room, Rhea stood over a large map of the planet. "Phase 2 begins now," she told Nilo and Drax. Nilo nodded silently. Drax grinned. "They still think we're here to help." Rhea tapped a point on the map. "Soon, we take the central energy core. Once we control their power, they'll have nothing left." "And the president?" Drax asked. "She will do nothing," Rhea said. "She fears losing the people's hope, but hope fades fast." That night, Alari stood alone in her private garden. The stars above looked peaceful, but her heart was heavy. She heard a sound. Turning, she saw General Kirin. He handed her a small device, a recording. She pressed play. It was Rhea's voice. "Once we have control of the core, the planet will belong to us. Tyrannus will be our new outpost. The people will learn to obey or vanish." Alari's hands shook. "They lied to us," she whispered. "No," Kirin said. "We let them lie." Back in the tunnels, Laren and the Flame found something buried deep in old records. A message from centuries ago. It warned, "Xeric help is never free. They offer safety, then take control. They always come with a hidden chain." Laren looked at the others. "They did this to other planets before. And now to us." Mira stood up. "We need to tell everyone." "No," Dano said. "If we shout too fast, we'll be crushed. We need proof. We need a plan." Laren nodded. "And we must move fast, because if they take the energy core, it's over." In the shadows of the planet, a quiet war had begun. Not with ships, not with bombs, but with truth, fear, and fire. The people of Tyrannus had reached the turning point. Some still believed Xeric were heroes, but others had opened their eyes. And soon, they would open their mouths. Deep below the city of Tyrannus, in the dark tunnels beneath the old transport station, the group known as the Flame met again. Laren, the old historian, placed a glowing map on the table. "This is where they're going next," he said. The central energy core. If they take it, they control everything. Our power, our heat, our lives. Mira, the brave girl from the mountains, leaned forward. Then we stopped them. Dano, the young pilot, frowned. We can't fight them head-on. Their weapons are too strong. Laren nodded. That's why we need something bigger than weapons. What? Mira asked. Laren looked up. The truth. In the capital, President Aleri was trapped in her own palace. The halls were full of Zirek soldiers. She gave orders, but no one followed them. Outside, posters of Rhea were everywhere. The blade who saved us. Strong. Silent. Zirek. Aleri knew it was a lie, but the people believed it. She turned to General Kiran. We need to show the people what Zirek is really doing. Kiran nodded. Laren may already be working on that. He sent a message, said he's found proof. Real proof. Aleri looked out the window at the people walking under black Zirek banners. Tell him to hurry. Meanwhile, the warriors from Zirek moved quickly. Rhea had begun setting up guards near the energy core. It was the heart of Tyronis, where all the light, heat, and air systems came from. Drax stood by the main gates, checking every worker. No one gets in without our mark, he growled. Nilo, silent as always, placed new machines at the entrance, small devices that glowed red. What are those? Asked a Tyronis engineer. Security, Nilo said, his voice low and cold. To protect you. But in truth, those machines weren't for protection. They were for control. Back in the tunnels, Laren had found something important. A video, hidden in a damaged archive from a destroyed planet called Varnox 3. The video showed Rhea, years ago, standing before a burning city. Your leaders failed you, she said. Zarek 9 will lead now. Then came images of towns turned into war camps. People chained. Children trained to fight. It happened there, Laren said. It will happen here too. Mira stared at the screen, her hands shaking. We have to show this to everyone. But how? Dano asked. Zarek controls the news stations. Laren smiled. But they don't control the old Sky Tower. The emergency broadcast system still works from there. If we get inside, we can send this message to every screen, every home, every city. Dano nodded. Then that's the plan. The flame moved quietly. At night, they snuck through back alleys. They passed guards using old sewer paths. They hid in moving trucks. Each step was dangerous. If caught, they would vanish, just like the others who had spoken out. But they kept moving, because they knew this was their only chance. In the main Zarek base, Rhea sat alone, watching the planet map. Drax entered. The energy core will be under full control in 3 days. Good, she said. Then she paused. There's a problem. A few citizens have gone missing. I think someone is planning something. Should we hunt them? Drax asked. Rhea nodded. Start with the tunnels. Burn anything you find. That same night, Mira reached the Sky Tower. The building was old and broken, but the control room still worked. Laren and Dano followed, carrying the video files. They powered up the console. Are you sure this will work? Mira asked. We'll find out, Laren said, pressing a final button. The screen lit up. Then, every screen on Tyronis flickered. The posters of Rhea vanished, and the truth began to play. First came the voice of Rhea. Zarek 9 will lead now. Then came the images of burning towns, war camps, and broken families. Then came the old warning. Zarek help is never free. They offer peace, then take your soul. People across the planet stopped in their tracks. Shoppers dropped their bags. Soldiers paused. Children stared. President Aleri stood in her palace and watched with tears in her eyes. They finally see, she whispered. Back in the Zarek base, Ria's eyes burned with rage. "Find them," she said coldly. "Now." But it was too late. The truth had been released. The people of Tyronis had seen behind the mask, and something dangerous had returned to their hearts. Courage. The truth had finally reached the people of Tyronis. Across cities, villages, and mountain towns, everyone saw what Xeric 9 really was. The video from the Sky Tower played again and again. No one could forget Ria's voice. Xeric 9 will lead now. And the burning cities, the screaming families, the chained prisoners, the people of Tyronis felt shock, then fear, and then anger. In the capital, President Aleri held a secret meeting. Laren, Mira, and Dano stood before her. "You've done more in 3 days than I have in 3 months, Aleri said. "Thank you." Laren shook his head. "This isn't over yet. Xeric still controls the energy core. And Rhea won't let go easily," added Dano. Aleri nodded. "Then it's time we stop hiding. Tyronis must rise." All across the planet, people began to fight back. Workers in the mines refused to send supplies to Xeric. Farmers stopped feeding their soldiers. Old soldiers returned, forming secret squads to defend their cities. And children, like Mira, became messengers, running from town to town, spreading hope like fire. Xeric had power. But now, Tyronis had purpose. In the underground tunnels, Laren sat alone with an old datapad. He looked through reports from other planets Xeric had helped. Each story ended the same way: control, silence, and ruin. "They always followed the same steps," he whispered. "Take trust, then take power, then take everything." He stopped on one report. Xeric only failed once, on a planet called Kavos 7. "How did they fail there?" Laren asked. The answer made his blood run cold. They were betrayed from within. Meanwhile, in the Xeric base, Rhea stood in a dark room, staring at a holomap. "We're losing control," said Drax. "The people are waking up." Rhea didn't blink. "They saw what we wanted hidden." Nilo entered silently and handed Rhea a device. She pressed play. Laren's voice spoke. "They always follow the same steps. Take trust, then power, then everything." Then the screen showed something else. A message, sent from inside the palace. Rhea froze. "Who sent this?" she demanded. Drax looked down. It was from the president's staff. Rhea's eyes narrowed. "We've been betrayed." The next day, President Aleri received a strange message. It was marked urgent, and it was from Rhea. "I wish to speak. Alone. No tricks. Let's meet where we first welcomed Xeric." At sunrise, General Kiran begged her not to go. It could be a trap. Aleri shook her head. Or a chance to end this without more blood. She arrived at the mountain gate before sunrise. Rhea was waiting. Her armor glowed in the dim light. They stood in silence for a long moment. "You've made this difficult," Rhea said. "You lie to us," Aleri replied. "I told you we don't fight for free. You didn't say the price was our planet." Rhea stepped closer. "We could still share it. You rule. I rule. Together." Aleri stared at her. "You're afraid," she said. For the first time, Rhea's mask cracked, just a little. "I've lost planets before," she said, "but not this one. I need this one." "Why?" Aleri asked. Rhea didn't answer, but her eyes burned with something deeper than power: desperation. Back in the capital, General Kiran received a message. It was from one of the Flame members hiding near the energy core. "Xeric is moving something inside. Something big. I think it's a planet locker." Kiran's eyes widened. A planet locker was a last resort device. If activated, it would freeze all power, communication, and transport. It would turn Tyronis into a silent cage. Kiran ran to warn Aleri, but she was still at the mountain gate with Rhea. Time was running out. Laren, Mira, and Dano regrouped in the old archives. Laren explained what he had read. Zurich only failed once, because someone on the inside turned against them. Someone powerful. Someone they trusted. Mira thought for a moment. Someone like Nilo. Maybe, Laren said, or maybe one of their leaders wanted out. Dano shook his head. They'd follow orders. That's all. But what if one of them is tired of it? Mira asked. What if someone is waiting for the right moment to stop Rhea? Laren looked at her and slowly nodded. At the mountain gate, Rhea stepped back. Think about my offer, she said. We could rule Tyronis as one. Aleri stared at her. No, she said, we'll rule it without you. Then she turned and walked away. Rhea watched her leave and whispered, then let the war begin. Back in the Zurich command room, Nilo stood alone, staring at the video from Kavos 7. He reached up and slowly removed his mask. His face was marked with scars, but in his eyes there was something no one had seen before. Doubt. The skies above Tyronis were no longer calm. Black Zurich ships hovered like vultures over cities. The streets below were tense, silent, waiting. But something was different now. The people were no longer afraid. They were angry, and they were ready. In the city of Varnan, a loudspeaker echoed through the air. Power will be cut in 1 hour. All citizens must remain indoors. But the people didn't go inside. They came out. Mothers, fathers, children, old miners with rusted tools, farmers with blades, young students with only their fists. They gathered in the town square and chanted one word. Tyronis. A Zurich soldier shouted, disperse. But no one moved. Then someone threw a stone, and the uprising began. At the Capitol Palace, President Aleri received the message. Protests in 6 cities. Fighting in 3. The people have risen. She looked at General Kiran. We must help them. Kiran nodded. I've sent support teams. Former soldiers, old allies, even flame members. And the Energy Corps. We don't know yet. Zurich has sealed the gates. Aleri closed her eyes. If they activate that planet locker, we lose everything. At the Energy Corps, Rhea watched her soldiers work. The device was ready. A black machine shaped like a claw. It hummed with power. Once we trigger this, Drax said, all of Tyronis goes dark. No power. No signal. They'll have no choice. Nilo stood nearby, silent. Rhea turned to him. Ready? Nilo nodded. But inside, his heart was burning. He had watched the people, the fear, the pain. He had seen their children cry, just like he once did on his own broken planet, and he remembered what it felt like to lose everything. Meanwhile, Mira and Dano reached the core walls. They had joined a secret team of flame fighters, hiding under old pipes, climbing through the maintenance tunnels. The outer gate is guarded, Mira whispered. What do we do? Dano checked a map. There's a vent system here. It leads straight to the control room. Mira grinned. Let's go. They crawled through the tight metal tunnels. The sound of machines and marching boots echoed through the walls. They had no weapons, only a message. Free Tyronis. Inside the control room, Nilo stood alone with the activation key in his hand. Drax and Rhea were called away for a moment, responding to the protests outside. Nilo looked at the device. One press, and he would silence a planet. His finger hovered over the button. But he couldn't do it. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out an old photo. It was burned and cracked. But it showed his little brother. The brother who never survived Zurich's last mission of peace. Nilo took a deep breath. Then he removed the core from the planet locker. Without it, the device would not work. He hid the core under a panel, just as Mira and Dano burst into the room. He raised his hands. "Wait," he said. "I'm not your enemy." Mira aimed a stolen blaster. "Then why are you wearing their armor?" Nilo took off his mask. "I want to stop Rhea too." Dano frowned. "Why should we trust you?" Nilo held out the planet locker key. "I just saved your world." Outside the core, chaos had spread. Citizens threw rocks and smoke bombs. Xeric soldiers fought back with stun guns and drones. But they were outnumbered. And worse, they were hated. For the first time, the mighty Xeric warriors felt fear. And it shook them. Back in the palace, President Alari broadcasted a message to the whole planet. Tyrannus belongs to its people, not to Xeric, not to fear. We will not be ruled by threats. We stand together, and we will rise together. The message reached homes, screens, even loudspeakers in the streets. The people cheered. Hope returned to the hearts of those who had given up. At the core, Rhea returned to the control room. She found Drax unconscious and a locker disabled. The core was gone. She screamed in rage. "Nilo, you coward." But Nilo was gone. So were Mira and Dano. They had escaped into the tunnels. And with them, they carried the most powerful weapon of all: control of the planet's future. In the Flames' hideout that night, Laren looked at the glowing power core. "It's not just power," he said. "It's a choice." Mira nodded. "Do we rebuild, or do we strike first?" Nilo looked at them both and said softly, "We do both." The uprising had begun. Xeric was losing its grip, but Rhea still had ships, soldiers, and a burning desire for revenge. The real war was coming, and Tyrannus would need more than truth to win. It would need sacrifice. The stars above Tyrannus burned red. Xeric's warships had returned, more of them than ever before. From space, the planet looked small, but down below, the people were no longer small. They were ready. This was the final battle. This was the last stand. In the secret tunnels under the palace, Mira, Dano, Nilo, and Laren prepared the final plan. Laren placed the glowing core on the table. "Without this, they can't control the planet." Nilo nodded. "But Rhea won't stop. She'll come down herself." "She already has," Mira said. "We saw her ship land near the southern fields." Dano checked the map. "We have one chance. We get the core to the Sky Tower, connect it to the main signal. Then we can override Xeric's systems." "And what happens after that?" Nilo asked. Laren looked up. "We fight." All across Tyrannus, people armed themselves. Some had old weapons. Others had nothing but tools and anger. But they didn't hide. They gathered in town squares, in ruined streets, in open fields. They lit fires. They raised the flag of Tyrannus, torn but still flying. And they waited. In the capital, President Alari stood on a rooftop, wearing her old war coat. General Kirin stood beside her. "We trained them to believe in peace," she said. Kirin nodded. "But we also trained them to fight for it." Then the sky above them turned black. Xeric's ships began to land. Soldiers poured out like shadows. And at the front was Rhea. Rhea walked through the city's streets like a storm. She held a massive weapon in one hand, her face cold as stone. Civilians ran. But others stood firm, blocking her path with nothing but courage. She raised her weapon and fired. Buildings shook. Smoke filled the air. But then, boom! A rocket hit the ground near her. Not from Xeric, from Tyrannus. The uprising had become a real war. At the Sky Tower, Mira and Dano reached the top floor. The old control room shook with each explosion outside. "Quick!" Mira shouted. "Connect the core." Nilo plugged it in. The screens lit up. The signal was ready. Laren uploaded the final message. "This is Tyrannus. We are not afraid. We choose freedom. And we are not alone." The signal didn't just reach their planet. It reached others. Planet Serac had ruled before, planets they had broken, planets waiting in silence. And now, they answered. In the skies, distant stars flashed. Ships began to move. Some were old warships. Others were cargo crafts filled with fighters. A voice came over the signal. This is Kaos 7. We heard your call. We are coming. This is the Doran system. We remember Rhea. We fight with you. This is planet Velen. For every home Zarek burned, we rise. Across the galaxy, the forgotten had found their voice. Because Tyrannus had spoken first. Back on the streets, Rhea fought like a wild force. But something was different. Zarek soldiers were hesitating. Some dropped their weapons. Some refused to shoot. And one by one, they turned away. Rhea screamed, "You cowards! Obey me." But no one answered, because even Zarek was beginning to break. In the tower, Nilo saw the incoming fleet. He turned to Mira. "You started something bigger than a planet." She nodded. "We just told the truth." Rhea reached the tower doors. She blasted them open. Laren stood alone inside. Old. Unarmed. "You," she said. "You lost," Laren replied. Rhea raised her weapon. But before she could fire, Nilo stepped out, her second in command, her most silent warrior, and he pointed his weapon at her. Rhea froze. "Nilo," she whispered, "what are you doing?" "I'm ending this," he said. "For my brother. For the children you turned into soldiers. For every planet you used." She stared at him, her eyes full of fire. "Then shoot." Nilo hesitated. "Then." He lowered his weapon. "I won't become like you." Rhea screamed and raised her gun. Bang. A blast came from the doorway. Mira. Rhea fell. Silent. Still. The war was over. 3 days later, the people gathered in the capital. President Aleri stood before them. Beside her were Mira, Dano, Nilo, Laren, and the flame. Flags flew in the wind. Children sang. Old warriors wept. And across the galaxy, the message of Tyrannus spread. Help came from the worst planet in the galaxy. But now, they regret everything. Because Tyrannus didn't just survive. It led a revolution. The end.